Second very commonly used tool is focus groups. Probably have heard quite a bit about that. Focus groups are group interviews or discussions that are typically guided by a moderator or facilitator. So it's not a one-on-one setting. You have several people there. However, they need to come from a similar background. These groups are organized to explore a specific set of issues relating to people's views and experiences. So there's a clear invitation to discuss a certain topic. There's a clear purpose to the meeting. It's not very blinded. And the focus comes from the collective activity that is focused on one theme. The interesting part here is that it's not a one-on-one, it's not a interaction just with the researcher, but also a lot of the information that can be learned from a focus group is coming from the interaction of the group. It's also typically a more informal, non-confrontational setting. If you're sitting there in a group, oftentimes the methodology works more like moderating a discussion rather than leading an interview that has a clear person who asks question and a clear person who answers. It often tends very quickly to go into a discussion between the different participants. Therefore, the interaction between the people is really important. And it allows researchers to determine if the questions that they're asking are eliciting the desired responses that they would like to see. If you want to conduct a focus group discussion, focus group study, there's a key point is why you would do that is to collect qualitative data to interpret the group's dynamics and their interaction and their way of understanding. So it's oftentimes, as I've said before, more about the interaction between the group rather than the gathering of information from a specific person or from several specific persons that are sitting there in the room. Oftentimes, these groups are not too large, not too small, typically 6 to 12 people. Over 12 people, it sort of gets hard to have a discussion where a lot of people are participating. It will be taken over by certain strong people, and some people in the groups wouldn't really speak more. It really depends also on the culture or the cultural group that is focusing on. Duration typically 1 to 3 hours. This is really a question of focus and attention over 3 hours. And sometimes even earlier, it gets very tedious also for the participants, rather a strong and heavy burden on them, and then gets less informed. But it's very important that there's a facilitator or moderator to keep the discussion flowing or to also slow it down at some points in time to guide the participants into the directions that should be explored. Also sometimes through direct questions, but also realizing when it's reached a dead end and another angle of observation would be needed. However, this is not a free-flow exercise. You really need to be prepared to lead, to prepare your lead questions that will need to be asked on the topic to generate a discussion. You'll need notes before that, and it's also often very advisable to record the discussion or have very good note-taking within the groups. Oftentimes, a colleague or someone can take over note-taking. But if it is possible, it is ideal to record discussion if this is allowed by data privacy laws and also if the participants have agreed to it. Very important uses are learning how respondents talk about the topic of interest, generating research hypotheses for further testing as well. It can stimulate new ideas that you hadn't thought of before. It can help you diagnose potential problems, for example, for policy programs and so on, how that would be received, how that would actually make it into the minds of the people. Also obtaining general background information directly from the source and also interpreting or again validating previously obtained qualitative results to see if these different kind of methodologies match up. One interesting thing when we talk about learning how respondents talk about the topic of interest, it's often also very advisable to look at the language itself, meaning what words are used at a certain connotations. So it can be very different from group to group what kind of words and the associations that come with these words. It can be bad, it can be good, and even much more complex are used to describe the topic.